In recent days, international media have reported on an event that could become a turning point in relations between India and the United States. According to the Financial Times and the Indian outlet, The Hindu, after a recent meeting between Prime Minister Narendra Modi, Vladimir Putin and Xi Jinping during closed-door talks in Shanghai, India has taken a step that effectively shifts the balance of power in Asia. Insiders from the Indian Ministry of Foreign Affairs cited by Bloomberg claimed that the discussions went beyond BRICS economic cooperation and included matters of military security, in particular the possible restriction of US naval access to Indian ports. And now it has emerged that New Delhi is seriously considering a move Washington views as a betrayal, banning American warships from its harbors and eventually scaling back and then fully ending military cooperation with the United States. For the Pentagon, this came as a shock. Until very recently, India was regarded as a key US partner in the Indo-Pacific region, a counterweight to China's growing influence. But the trade war launched by Donald Trump against Delhi has struck too deep a blow. New tariffs on Indian steel, pharmaceuticals and textiles provoked outrage in New Delhi. Indian media quoted representatives of the Confederation of Indian Industry. America is acting as if we are an enemy, not a strategic partner. If Washington wants a tariff war, it will get one. This rhetoric coincided with a sharp increase in India's contacts with Moscow and Beijing. Analysts at Carnegie India note that Modi's meeting with Putin and Xi Jinping was not merely ceremonial. According to their information, the sides discussed creating a new logistical access linking Indian ports with Chinese and Russian transport corridors while bypassing Western routes. In exchange, China offered India expanded access to its high-tech market, while Russia proposed long-term energy contracts at preferential prices. As Nikkei Asia reports, this offer may have persuaded Delhi to distance itself from the United States. According to Reuters sources in the Indian parliament, a document revising cooperation with the US Navy is already being prepared. It would not only ban port calls but also cancel India's participation in the joint naval exercises. Malabar long considered a symbol of strategic alignment between the US, Japan and India. If New Delhi takes this step, Washington would lose one of its most important levers of influence in the Indian Ocean. The Pentagon calls this a catastrophic scenario. Control of the Indian Ocean is a central element of America's strategy to contain China. U.S. supply routes for ships patrolling the South China Sea and the Persian Gulf have long run through Indian ports. Now, that access may be lost. Moreover, as The Guardian notes, India is reportedly considering granting priority access to its ports for Russian and Chinese vessels. If that happens, the balance of power would shift dramatically, pushing the US out of a region where it once felt dominant. Indian politicians themselves explained the move simply. America is no longer a reliable partner. A member of the ruling party told NDTV, "We are tired of US double standards. They demand that we limit trade with Russia. Yet they themselves buy Russian oil through third countries. They ask us to support them against China while slapping tariffs on our economy. This is not partnership. This is blackmail." According to CNN, Washington is stunned by the developments. Those close to Trump admit the trade war with India has gone too far, but the US president shows no sign of backing down. At a rally in Texas, he declared, "We will not let India take advantage of us. America will defend its jobs. If Modi thinks he will find friends in Beijing and Moscow, good luck to him." Yet behind those words lies mounting concern. According to Politico insiders, White House advisors are urgently preparing a new package of proposals for India, including tariff reductions and the resumption of dialogue on high-tech investment. The problem, however, is that trust has already been undermined. As Al Jazeera notes, voices favoring a strategic rapprochement with China and Russia have grown stronger within Indian political circles. Their argument is simple. Washington is too unpredictable. While Beijing and Moscow offer stability and long-term guarantees, all this could deal a major blow to US security in Asia. If India fully shifts toward China, the American Indo-Pacific partnership strategy will collapse. Japan and Australia would be left isolated, and Washington would lose the ability to contain Beijing from the south. According to the Center for Strategic and International Studies in Washington, the scenario of India leaving America's orbit is viewed as a nightmare. Thus, Trump's new trade war has not only deepened economic tensions, but also triggered a political process that could lead to a full reorientation of India. And if the White House fails to take steps in the coming weeks to restore confidence, the world may witness a historic turning point, the world's largest democracy choosing alliance with China and Russia, leaving America on the sidelines of geopolitics. Indian experts are already calling this the most serious rethinking of foreign policy in decades. According to the Hindustan Times, the Indian Ministry of Defense is drafting a so-called strategic autonomy roadmap with a key point being the gradual reduction of all forms of dependence on the United States. The document explicitly highlights the risks of relying on American technologies and weapons. As an example, it cites the case of F-21 fighter jet supplies and the missile defense system, which New Delhi believes could be used by Washington as tools of political pressure. Meanwhile, Russian diplomacy has become more active. As Kommersant reports, Moscow has proposed expanding military technical cooperation with Delhi, including joint production of T-90 tanks and S-400 air defense systems in Indian factories. Moreover, discussions are underway about jointly developing new weapons for the Indian Navy, something that was previously off the table due to US involvement in India's aircraft carrier modernization program. That restriction now appears likely to be lifted. China has not missed the moment either. According to the South China Morning Post, Xi Jinping personally promised Modi preferential conditions for Indian companies willing to integrate into Chinese technological supply chains. In return, Beijing expects India's political support in international organizations and its refusal to take part in US-led anti-China initiatives. In Washington, all this is seen as an alarming signal. Analytical reports by the Rand Corporation state bluntly, if India leaves the orbit of American influence, the United States will lose not only a military partner, but also a critically important element in China's strategic containment. Experts emphasize that India controls key maritime routes in the Indian Ocean, which means it can either block or facilitate access to the Middle East and Africa. For the US, losing this leverage would be a true strategic failure. Meanwhile, Modi's decision is gaining strong support at home. Social media is flooded with messages under hashtags India First and No More US, with users writing that it's time to stop being hostages of American policy. According to a poll by India Today, more than 60% of Indians support closer ties with Russia and China, believing it will give the country greater independence. The situation has become so serious that, according to the Wall Street Journal, the White House is discussing the possibility of an emergency visit by Donald Trump to New Delhi. However, Modi's circle is already making it clear no visit will change the essence of the problem. Unless America lifts tariffs and recognizes India's right to an independent trade and military policy, the door to dialogue will remain closed. Thus, we are witnessing a moment that may go down in history as the final rupture between India and the United States. At stake are not just tariffs or military exercises, but the very architecture of international relations in Asia. And the longer Washington delays making a decision, the greater the likelihood that New Delhi will firmly side with Moscow and Beijing, reshaping the geopolitical balance for decades to come.